hanging on to all the worst times. The big book said to put to bed what's in my head, but I can't. The fire, rage and anger, this broken heart has torn apart. My addiction started when I was 18. I tried cocaine for the first time. Never really drunk, never really did anything else. It was just a lot of cocaine.
I started using when I was 13, started smoking cannabis, and I felt different from everyone else as soon as I started smoking it. I just felt like I fitted in, and it just progressed over the years.
I used to be a drug user a long time ago, and then got clean and volunteering, doing my own recovery, became a drug and alcohol worker, and did that for many years.
So I was in addiction, crime and prison, on and off for about, well, there was no off, it was just on for about 28 years.
My journey started probably about when I was probably about 13, 14, and I found men. So my first addiction was men. And then as I got older, I found drugs.
So I was drinking for about 30 years, heavily for about 20. My life was just completely chaotic. It was affecting everything that I did.
As the years progressed, it became less and less manageable, less and less fun.
My marriage wasn't that great. There was domestic violence and gaslighting.
Lost jobs, lost my house, lost my family, lost my daughter.
And then in 2017, my son went into care. I gave birth to my daughter, and she died 5 weeks later. And then I found speed, which I thought was good because it kept my weight down, I didn't have to sleep.
After major trauma, when my ex-husband raped me, things started to become more pear-shaped really. I started drinking more. And then when we split up, or even before we split up, when he asked for a divorce, I relapsed into crack cocaine use.
And over time I've ended up just from chaos to chaos, drinking ridiculous amounts, ended up in hospital, getting sectioned.
Quite a lot of things happened in the past few years. I lost my mum and dad, and then I lost my partner to addiction.
Life was getting that bad, I just was waiting just for it to be over really, because I didn't think there was any hope there for me.
My life was so small, didn't have much contact from the outside world.
I'd had enough. I wanted a better life.
Really, that's about it. I mean, I don't have anything positive to say about my past life because it was just constantly misery, pain, hurting people, hurting myself. Wasn't nice at all.
It became too much, and I asked friends for help. I asked a friend who was a drug worker for help.
I have friends who were in recovery, got took to a meeting. Then I had a daughter to a young girl who's a different journey, but that was one of the main reasons for trying to help myself to become a better father for my daughter.
And ended up getting in touch with my mum. We had a very strange relationship. And from then on, my mum managed to get in touch with Acorn, and an opportunity came up for me to go into treatment. And I was desperate, and I wanted a new lease of life, so I went with it.
Luckily for me, I had a brilliant calico worker who was my floating housing support worker, and he pushed and pushed to get me into treatment.
It was suggested to me by a worker at the drug service, or a group worker, that I needed residential treatment. So I started to work towards that, and Acorn was the place that was suggested to me.
So I looked through loads of different rehabs, and I picked Acorn because of everything they offered, a lot to do with the aftercare side of it.
And unfortunately, due to my mental health, I wasn't able to get a placement in a rehabilitation centre, even though I'd had my funding approved by the local authority.
So I were in the process. I were losing my house. Luckily, I managed to be moved into emergency accommodation in Burnley for a few weeks, and then after a few weeks of doing the same stuff in Burnley, I managed to get a phone call saying they'd managed to get me a place into detox and a place into Acorn.
I was attending CA, I was working with CGL, but I couldn't get a placement anywhere as they thought that they couldn't keep me safe. But then I met an absolutely fantastic man, Darren Lang, who works here, and he tried his hardest to help me and assist me with Mel at getting a placement here.
Then I came into Acorn. When I came in, I was full of anxiety, scared of everything. And then over the weeks, I progressed. I started to speak out a bit more in group, spoke about my life story, and was reassured that it wasn't my fault. Everything that I thought was my fault wasn't my fault. I stopped blaming myself. And as my journey progressed, I felt lighter. The burden of all this, I don't know, baggage was released.
Because I'd lived in a certain environment for that long, I just did not understand about connecting with your feelings and things like that. So for a long time, everything I did was kind of robotic. I'd done a lot of CBT in prison, so I answered the questions well, and I thought I'd get away with them, but I didn't.
I said nothing for 8 weeks. I just had my arms folded, and I was told by a very good counsellor who's my support worker where my daughter's concerned, Tam Sweeney. There's no hidden microphones or police officers behind doors in this, you know, open up.
My counsellor Sue was instrumental in getting me to be a bendy ruler, getting me to be somebody that could be flexible. I've always been very rigid. My OCD makes me very rigid. I like everything in a nice, neat little box and everything done absolutely perfectly. That's not the case in life. So she enabled me to become a bendy ruler.
Very challenging, and we had to look at tough stuff together with people that you've only just met. And I found it difficult to open up.
I had feelings that I didn't know what they were and how to explain them. But over time, you get to know your feelings and where they've come from.
But I never probably finished treatment as a lot of people do. A lot of my learning had to come in the community. And that's kind of why I'd say a large part of this was about what Acorn offered me after as opposed to during treatment. They were both equally as important, but when I was living my life in the community after, a lot of the things that Sue and Tam used to get on my case about finally started to land, and it was like, right, oh my God, that's why they're saying that. So it's kind of, I suppose that's when my light bulb moments happened, when I was actually living my life.
I absolutely loved it. I'd do it again tomorrow. Absolutely loved it. When I went in there, I was very sceptical because I thought with all this chaos behind me and everything that I'd lost, I thought, what's this going to do, you know? But it was a case of, I will do anything. What do I need to do? I will do it. Tell me what I need to do. So I went in there and it was like, right, you're going to have to do this as long as you keep turning up, as long as you keep doing what you're asked to do. And I'm like, right, that's fine, given pieces of work, yes, I'll do that. And I just loved it. I really did. I enjoyed it all the way through, and I was just willing to do what I had to do because I was desperate.
I'm grateful for the experience of looking at that deep psychological stuff that most people don't ever get the chance to do. And I'm so glad that I've been allowed that experience.
Treatment has been an amazing journey. It's opened my eyes to all these different behaviours that I thought that only I had, but sharing with other people, listening to other people's stories. You're not just the only one in this world that feels like that.
The most favourite piece of work for me was probably the letters that I wrote to my mum and dad, to my partner who passed away, and to my children, and to my ex-wife. They were just the most effective at just putting it down on paper and then reading them back in group and reflecting on what I'd done and how I'd harmed them through me using. It were a really big wake-up call. Although deep down I knew what I'd done, but putting pen to paper and reading it out in a group, it just kind of sunk in what I'd actually done, and it kind of sunk in what I actually need to do.
The song that I wrote for my life story was recorded at my little box bedroom in Magda Road, I think the smallest room we've got for probably one of the biggest lads that was in treatment at the time. And that song was recorded in its entirety in that bedroom. The sounds of the storm outside, the dog barking next door, everything was done in that bedroom, and I cried my eyes out over and over again, listening, recording, playing that piece of music, and it's phenomenal. It allowed me to get some form of connection with my emotions, which I hadn't had before.
So mine was about relationships, which is assignment 3. I did it once and I kind of got called to account for it, that not having it, Wesley, do it again. And that took me to probably the biggest realisation of my life. And so I would write down about all the people they didn't like what they'd done to me and what it was I didn't like about them, and then the realisation was that everything that I hated in everyone was what I was. It had kind of been what I'd become. And so when I got that identification on that, yeah, it made me really, really vulnerable for weeks. But I had something then, I had something to hold on to, so something I could work on.
One that really comes to light is when, about the children who have never really supported, and I had to write a letter to my children, but then my counsellor told me to write a letter to yourself when you was a child, and that really stood out for me, and it made the group that I was in and the counsellor see it from a different angle, and I sort of like appreciated that, and it was like a weight off my shoulder that someone could recognise it, and so that really stood out for me, them letters to my children, apologising, and a letter to myself when I was a child.
So the main piece of work for me would be the letters, having to write letters to members of my family, then having to write letters from them back to myself. So it's trying to imagine how they would feel and what they would say to you with not being there in their life, although heavily affected. I've been unaware of what I put them through, so it makes you really, really delve into consequences and the ripple effect of what you've done to other people.
We did a piece of work on ego states, and I've just done a presentation on the counselling course I'm doing, using that piece of work.
My piece of work I liked the most, which I did a lot of research on, was ego status. You've got parent, adult and child status. And I didn't realise from all my adult life I lived in child mode. It's not fair, all those things, it's being a child. And now I know that I'm an adult, I need to live in adult status. And I look at things in an adult way, the here and now, and not on what has happened in the past, which would be the child way of looking at it.
I found looking at the now and how you can develop your core strengths to move on to the future, probably more valuable.
So when I finished treatment, I I still carried quite a lot of like, I don't know if it was resentment, but I was intimidated by this building. I stayed away for about 6 months. I was constantly on my case saying, you need to show yourself more, Wesley, you need to be doing this. And then I kind of made a conscious decision that, you know what, I really need to pull my finger out because I'm not moving forward in my life.
For me as a human being, I need to assist and help people as I've been helped in the past. So my goals are to come to Acorn to continue to support people, sponsor people outside of recovery, but also help people that are coming through in the same way that the voluntary staff did for me.
So I did the combination learning when I finished treatment, and that opened my eyes to possibilities, completely opened my eyes. I kind of saw for the first time a future, because I kind of thought, you know what, all my pain can kind of be used in a positive way. I could never think past the day in the past. I mean, I know I live in the here and now, but I kind of know that by doing that now, I trust my future to kind of be good, as opposed to, it's like the difference between waking up and the sun's shining or waking up and it's like today, a big storm and that make outside. So I don't really know what my hopes are. I just know that everything that I'm doing, so I'm very much at Fulston now with Acorn doing the academy stuff, and hopefully, ideally, something down that line.
My goal is to carry on with my counselling courses, which I'm doing the level 3 counselling in September, and just take it from there, see where this road takes me, which is a good road to go down. Things will get better, hopefully. That's my goals in life. That life will get better for me and my daughter and my other child who we have contact with, my son, my eldest.
It's like when people say magical things happen, they actually do, because the things I've done since leaving treatment, I mean, I've climbed Ben Nevis, I've done all sorts of stuff, been down to Wales, I've done some lovely walks, I've learnt new skills like digging ponds and all sorts. It's been absolutely amazing, and that's all in the space of 1 year. So there's just opportunities galore. I think now we're in new life, it's brilliant.
On my bucket list was learning how to play the guitar. So that's one of my goals. Cooking is my passion and hobby. So I want to do more with that. But I'd like to volunteer at Acorn anyway, to put something back.
My goals and dreams is just, my biggest one is just to stay clean and sober. And that's my biggest goal at the moment, is to do the steps so I can continue being the person I want to be, the healthy person with a clear mind that can help myself, and to be there for my son and my family. I want to live a life that I wake up in the morning full of joy, not a life where I wake up and think, oh no, not a day, another day.
The biggest thank yous have got to go to my mum and dad. My recovery wouldn't have been possible without the efforts of the team here at Acorn. Darren Lang, Melissa, Kerry, Sue, Steve McCrane, Kelvin, Leslie, Michelle, the volunteers, Shay.
I don't think there's anybody I couldn't thank really that's involved in everything around me. Obviously my family, my mum and dad, because I've just had continuing support, and that's not just through this, that was in the madness. Derek, Julie, and all the academy, because I got to a certain place, do you know what, and they pulled me forward, so that's just been like the icing on the cake for me, moving my life forward and taking it to the next level. And do you know what, everyone, so Kerry and Darren, all the housing support, everybody, I can't sit here and complain and say that not one person's helped me, because I've had nothing but support.
Karen, Lizzie Ward for getting me in there, Mel, Kerry, Tam Sweeney, massive thanks for that, man, for the support he's gave me and my daughter.
My mum, to Derek Fredericks, who helped me get here, Kerry. And I just want to say a massive thank you to Michelle as well, who supported me throughout.
The care manager, Nathan McGann, because He's the person who's instrumental in arranging the funding. My family, especially my son, but my brothers as well, because they've all helped me along my journey.
Mel, who did my assessment at the beginning, she's guided me so much through my journey. At times when I thought I wasn't worthy of being here. Thank you for my family, Ethan, my son, for his support. It's been a ripple effect. I've changed and he's changed, and it's been so nice for him to be proud of me like I'm proud of him. And thank you to my mum.
I'd like to thank Dean for getting me here from Calico, and Tricia from Achieving Berry, John the counsellor, Tam for going out of his way, my children for coming back into my life and just understanding, because I could have quite easily lost them, but they're all still there for me. So yeah, just thank you to my kids, everyone at Acorn, everyone at Acorn.